Hello, I'm here today to talk to you about the most popular quilling technique that we have. It's the most popular because it's the one we use the most, it's the most versatile, it's the one we teach the first. It can be shaped into any number of shapes, and in theory it's very simple to learn. And today I'm going to show you the 5 simple steps that are needed to make a close-loose coil. So I'll just run through those 5 steps for you quickly. So the first thing we do is to take the strip from the pack, and we break it to the length that we require, which might be indicated on a pattern, or it might be your decision. And then we roll it up. This, by the way, is a 5mm wide strip. Standard width is 3mm, but 5mm I thought would show you more easily. It's also good for beginners. Then the next step is to release the coil and glue down the end with a little spot of glue, and then shape it to whatever shape we want it to be. So if I've decided this is going to be a teardrop shape, then I'll just squeeze it into teardrop shape. But that shape can be any shape you like, really. So for example, I could shape it into an eye shape, or well, maybe I'll turn the eye shape into a leaf shape. So the eye shape could become a leaf shape, bit of curl in it, or this one can be a triangle. See there? You have to just imagine that this is a piece of plasticine, and you can shape it into more or less any shape you want it to be. So you're doing a square, you might do it like that, and then like this. Make yourself a square, or with a little bit of help from a dowel, we can turn this into a crescent shape. Just do that in a way that you can see it. Push it around a dowel, and that will make hopefully a nice crescent shape. But you can make your coil into any shape, virtually any shape that you want. So you can see all these here. All these shapes are made from simple round close-loose coils. Okay, so I just want us to take a closer look at that teardrop that I made earlier. This was the coil I rolled and turned into a teardrop shape, and you know, it's okay, I did all the things I was supposed to do. But personally, for me, it's not really good enough. Mainly because it's not very evenly spaced. So you can see that there's a bit of a gap here, then there are 3 of these spiracles close together, then there's lots of spacing going on there. So really, I really feel I could improve on that. And I really would like my teardrop shape to look more like this one, where the spiracles are much more evenly spaced, and the centre of the coil is nice and neat and curved and in the middle. So I'm going to aim for that, really. And I have a few tricks that I can do. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that my paper strip is made from 100-gram weight paper. This is very important. Not all paper strips are that weight, and your supplier should know that you've got 100 grams of weight paper. That's important. The second thing to do is to make sure that I have on my strip a cut end and a torn end. the cut end is going to be where I start my coil, and the torn end is going to be where I glue it down. So a cut end and a torn end. The next thing to do is make sure there are no kinks in my paper. If I took it straight from the pack, it may have kinks and turns, and so I'll straighten that out with a small gentle scratch along one side. It's okay if the paper strip is curving a little. It's not okay if it's got kinks in it. So that's before I start. And now I'm going to roll. So now, rolling. You saw before that I just use my fingers to roll with. I pull back the tip and use this sort of action to start my coil. Now the reason for this is that I want my centre to be nice and neat and tiny. I do not want this sort of thing to happen where I've got a great big hole at the centre of my coil. I don't want this sort of thing where I've got a bent bit at the centre of my coil, and I don't want this sort of thing where there's actually a piece of kinked paper at the centre. I want it to be nice and tight like this. So that's the way I found best to do that, is to use my fingers only, and I use this action. So I pull back the very tip, having scratched it, because you saw me scratching it before. That softens it a little and gets the coil started, and then I use this action, often having dampened my fingers so that it works more easily. Pull back the very tip. I might do this several times to make sure I'm getting a good coil, and then I have a look at it to see if I like it. Is it actually doing a nice curl? And when I'm happy, I continue the roll, which is very much like rolling up a tape measure. But I will just analyse that for you. What I'm doing is I'm holding it with this hand and I'm pushing with that hand, that action again. So I'm going to push, take hold, push, take hold, push, take hold. But most people don't need this because it's like rolling up a tape measure. Come to the end and I continue to roll for another half a dozen rolls before I release the coil. And if it's correct, you can see already it's a more regular sort of a coil. I'm happy with that middle, that looks a bit bent to me. But I'll continue anyway. So now I'm going to glue down the end. And the next thing to do is make sure I've got very good quality PVA. That's so that I need only a tiny dot. If I put a lot on, it'll ooze out and it will not look good. And you'll see that that's not actually on the very end of the strip, because it's going to ooze. So if it's right on the end, it will definitely ooze out. And now I'm going to glue this down, and I'm going to use tweezers to glue it down, to hold it down, because I want it to go down firmly and not glue to the next spiracle. So I'll do that, so now it's a regular coil. Now you can see this coil, this round coil isn't perfect. I would have been amazed if it had been perfect. You can see it's tightish here, then there's gaps there, it's irregularly spaced. So what do I do before I shape it to make it look good? Well, 2 actions to start with, probably 3 actions. What I do is to hold the coil with this hand and turn. And you can see already the spiracles are beginning to get more even. I also use a left to right action like this. See that? Move the centre of the coil from left to right, and as soon as I'm happy that they are fairly regularly spaced, then I'll squeeze. The other thing I should have done was to make absolutely sure that where the join of the coil was is in a place that's not going to show when I put together my design. But you can see now the coil is much more like I want it to be much more regularly spaced. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is to put it in place. This centre to this flower is a quarter length. Quarter lengths and anything less than that are very good for creating regular, even coils. The shorter the strip, the easier it is to make it nice and regular. So if you want to impress your friends, stick to really short lengths and do lots of them. If you want to impress an expert quiller, make your big coils regular. They're more difficult. So that's going to go in position in the middle of my flower. This is a wet palette I usually use for sticking down. So that's going to get a layer of glue on it. And I'll pick up the coil, dunk it onto the glue and put it in position. And the second one, hold it here, dunk it into the glue, put it in position, and hopefully not too many glue marks. Now I'm going to make a leaf, another leaf for this flower, because I want to show you one more thing that I do sometimes to make sure that the coil is regular. So I'm going to do the same thing again, get my damp fingers and pull back the tip. This action to get it started. Is it going all right? Yes, not too bad. I'm rolling a little looser this time. Generally speaking, the more you want to shape your shape, the looser you should. So just release your tension a little bit. Not too much, of course. Keep going another half a dozen times. Release the coil. Glue down the end. A bit of glue on its very tip. Well, not on its very tip, slightly away from its tip. That's far too much glue. See that glue? Far too much. Fold it down. And then I have my closed loose coil ready to shape. See, I knew there's too much glue coming out there. So now I'm going to shape it into a leaf shape. But again, as before, and as expected, this is not regular. Big gaps here and tight there. So what I sometimes do is to make this coil physically move the spiracles about and to make sure that they are regular. So I wonder if you can see that. Might be better there. Really. So what I'll do is I'll move these spiracles backwards and forwards in an attempt to get them to be more regular. So I'll actually hold on to them, move them into position until I'm happy that they're in a more even space. There we are. So then I can squeeze this side, and get a more evenly spaced coil, and then that will go in there. Again, use my tweezers and my wet palette, put it in position. The other one, that in position. Don't need a lot of glue. Very small amount of glue. And there is my finished quilling, made of closed loose coils. Okay, so that was closed loose coils, and I hope you're not going to be put off by all those little refinements and things that I do in an effort to get perfection. I'm very much aware that people quill in their own way, and that's a good thing, and I want you to find your way of quilling and really enjoy it.